Tim Wilkin joins us from the Times Union. Tim now is the horse racing guru in the capital region, who and so knowledgeable and writes about horse racing, and of course Saratoga, and covers the Triple Crown, and actually that baton that he has now comes from Matt Graves, and Matty Graves was the guy for so many years. And when I came here in the late '80s, I mean, you open up the Times Union and you read horse racing, and it was all about Matt Graves, and so well respected. And then I got to know Matt just from my travels in and out of the press box every year, and he passed away, unfortunately, after a long bout with cancer. It was Saturday night into Sunday morning, and Tim Wilkin wrote a column on Matt Graves. Graves leaves a legacy of humor and wit, and Tim Wilkin joins us here on Big Board Sports. Good morning, Tim.
Hey, Rodger, Chris, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good, Tim. I think we're all sorry about the loss of Matt Graves, but I know you had a chance to get in and see him a couple times, and he was suffering, right? He was in some pain, so I guess at the end, at least the suffering is over. Yeah,
I mean, I saw him probably, 6 or 7 times, and maybe, 5 of those times he was actually in good spirits, doing his laughing, wisecracking, and genuinely making you feel better than maybe he was when you walked out of there, because that's just the way he was. I mean, he just loved to laugh, loved to poke fun, and, he's just, he was like a titan of humor, as well as, doing his job, which he prided himself greatly on, picking winners at Saratoga. He was, I think, the last 6 years or so that he was with the Times Union, he was the leading handicapper in the Times Union. And I think he was the overall leading handicapper at Saratoga 4 times, which is not an easy thing to do.
What kind of a legacy does Matt Graves leave, Tim?
Well, Rodger, I think that anyone that ever crossed paths with him was glad that they knew him. I mean, he was the kind of guy that would put you at ease right away. He'd make you laugh. He would make you sometimes side-splitting laughter with some of the quips he came up with. He was so sharp, and the way he would, you could say one thing to him, and he would just come back with something real fast, and you wonder, how the heck does he do this? But he was just a pleasure to be around, and, I always kidded him that, he'd just pick the favorites all the time. And he'd always come back with something like, well, a short price is better than a long face.
And then I got a real kick out of your column today, where you talk about some of the stories that you have of Matt, and how about the story where he got struck by lightning in 1990 at the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, he would tell that story often, and actually we were talking about it last week in the hospital, talking about the going to the barn of this Mr. Frisky, the horse from Puerto Rico, and all the handlers, after this lightning strike came, I guess they all saw it, and they thought Matt was going to bring bad luck to the horse. They were trying to shoo him out of the barn, and he had his umbrella, and it must have been a scene from out of a movie. But yeah, Matt loved telling that story, and he loved telling hundreds more, which we probably couldn't talk about on air.
No, I'm sure. And then you wrote this morning in your column, one of the sports clerks asked this: Matt, did anything supernatural happen when you got hit by lightning? Matty, as you wrote, always quick with the quip shot back. Yeah, I was vaulted into the future and saw yours, and it ain't too bright.
Yep. That's a story that still lives on in the Times Union sports department. The guy that said it he doesn't work there anymore, and a lot of the people that were there then don't work there anymore. But it brings a laugh to people that weren't there. But it's that was just part of Matt's legacy. He was there was another time when there was a guy, I won't mention his name, but his nickname was the Pumpkin. Matt gave him the nickname the Pumpkin because he had a big orange face. And he was in the office it was Halloween night. He was in the office, and he was saying he had to get home early. And Matt says, no, you got to finish doing these rewrites. You got to keep doing this. And the guy kept saying, I got to get home. So finally, Matt says, all right, go. And he scurries out. And I looked at Matt, and I said, how come you're letting him go and I got to stay here? Matt says, well, it's Halloween. He's got to go home and sit in the window.
That's a great one. Typical Matt Graves, who I got to know, just from the press box and then even outside of the working areas. Somebody that I always respected, and he would walk into a room, as you said, Tim, and hey, Matt Graves is in the room, and you knew it. For me, I was a cub reporter back in the late '80s. I knew nothing about the sport of horse racing, and the last thing I want to do is come flying into a press box like a know-it-all 25-year-old, like I'm going to steal the thunder. I always looked at him and went, man, that's the guy that you got to pay attention to. He knows what he's doing in horse racing, and ask him all the questions and make sure that I'm doing everything right, because I don't know that much about this sport yet. And he was great, and I think at the end of our time together, he respected the fact that back in those days, I looked up to him and learned everything I could from Matt Graves. I'm sure in a lot of ways, Tim, you did the same thing, and now here you are as a guy that has become the next Matt Graves in terms of what you do for the sport of horse racing and the writing that you do in the Times-Union.
Yeah, but there's never going to be another Matt. I mean, he stood above everybody else as far as, his knowledge of handicapping was it was unsurpassed by anybody. He was able to, pick things out that I couldn't. And he would pass stuff along to me, but, I mean, I remember sometimes he would, like when the story that was in the paper with Tim Layden and I, he was told us to bet a 4-5 exacta, and he said he was going to bet the same thing, and Tim Layden, and we were just young guys coming up there, and Tim's now at Sports Illustrated, and we went running to the windows, put down our money, figuring we were counting it before the race even started, and the 4-5 didn't go anywhere, and we went up to Matt and says, "How did we lose this?" He goes, "I didn't lose, I had it." I said, "How'd you have it? You bet the 4-5?" He goes, "No, I bet the 3-8. That's what came in, the saver bet."
Timmy,
said, all right, Matty, thanks for that.
Timmy, when you were, Rodger's talked about the baton being passed from Matt to you. What is a piece of advice Matt gave you that you still carry with you today?
Well, Matt was always very meticulous about not having any mistakes. He didn't want, especially spelling mistakes. He was a stickler for that. And, the use of, effect and effect. And whenever I would screw it up, he would let me know about it, even up till, a month ago. And he was very supportive of anybody that wanted to cover the sport that he loved so much. And he was, I think he was kind of tickled the fact that there were people that would come up and talk to him about, ask him different questions about the game, and he would help them out. And, just an all-around good guy who, left us too soon.
Yeah, no question. I mean, I know he'd been battling cancer for a long time, but had been doing well, and then took a turn for the worse, and then it went in a hurry. He passed away over the weekend at the hospice inn at St. Peter's Hospital. But he does leave quite the legacy, Tim. I know, and I know it must have been hard for you yesterday at the office to try to write this column that you wrote beautifully in the Times-Union this morning.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. I mean, and then the other story I did just about his life and, talking to people about him, like, Nick Zito, who was, he's a friend to every media person, and he got along well with Matt. I mean, Nick actually called me again this morning right before I went on. I don't know what he wanted, but told him I had to call him back. And, he was genuinely saddened about, Matt leaving us. And, it's just, it's really hard to believe that he's gone. And the thing that was big, too, with Matt was his family. I mean, his wife, Debbie, who he married 6 years ago, his daughter, Jennifer, out in Seattle, and his, 2 brothers, and he had 2 sisters, and he thought the world of them. He just always supportive of them and then whatever they did. And he was proud of everything they did, too. And, it wasn't always about him, even though I always told him everything's about you, Matty, which I always got a colorful retort back from. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he was a good guy, and I'm glad that he had at least this summer, right? If those of you who follow the horse racing and follow Saratoga, he really helped you out quite a bit.
Yes, he did.
This summer, writing some columns for you.
Yeah, he would cover I think every Saturday except one. He had another commitment, but he was up there and he would write the game story off the feature race on Saturday at Saratoga, and I would write the column. And it's sort of role reversal because it used to be the other way around when Matt was sitting in the top chair up there.
Well, we appreciate a few minutes, Tim. Your column was well done, and I think we all are mourned with the passing of Matt Graves, and certainly those who knew Matt knew what a great guy he was, and he will certainly be missed. But rest in peace, certainly, for Matt Graves.
Yep, I'm sure he'll live on forever in a lot of people's minds.
No doubt. Thank you, Timmy. Appreciate it. Tough time. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.